I set the old toolbox down on the workbench and stared at the dusty garage around me. Linda's garden gloves still hung on the hook by the door, exactly where she'd left them 14 months ago. 14 months since the semi-truck ran the red light at Route 44. 14 months since I became a widower at 67. The toolbox had been in the back of her sedan. The insurance company finally released it last week, along with her other personal effects. I'd been avoiding opening it, but autumn was settling into our small Michigan town, and the lake house needed winterizing. I needed my good level, the one I'd lent Linda for her community center project. I flipped the latch. Tools, measuring tape, and then, wedged in the corner beneath a packet of sandpaper, something that made my hands freeze. A cassette tape in a clear case. My name written on the label in Linda's careful handwriting. Robert. Listen alone. We hadn't owned a cassette player in 15 years, but I knew where to find one. Our grandson had gone through a vintage music phase 2 summers ago, left his portable player in the lake house attic. My heart hammered as I climbed the stairs, each step creaking under my weight. The doctors kept saying I had the fitness of a man 20 years younger. All those years building bridges had kept me strong, but right now, I felt ancient. I found the player, blew dust off it, loaded the tape, pressed play. Static. Then Linda's voice filled the small attic room, and I had to sit down on an old trunk. Robert, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. And I need you to listen carefully, my love, because I don't have much time to record this. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the tremor underneath. I'm making this tape because I need you to be prepared. I need you to protect yourself from Marcus. Marcus, my nephew, my brother David's only son. David had died of a heart attack 6 years ago, and I'd promised to look after Marcus. The boy was 42 now, married to Stephanie, working in real estate development. He'd been coming around more often lately, ever since Linda's accident. I'd thought he was being supportive. Linda continued, 3 weeks ago, I overheard Marcus on the phone. I'd gone to drop off those cookies for his birthday, remember? I used my key because no one answered. He was in his office, talking to someone about the lakefront property and getting the old man into assisted living. Robert, he wasn't talking about a client. He was talking about our land. About you. I stopped the tape. The room spun. I rewound, listened again. The words didn't change. I started paying attention after that, Linda's voice said. Watching, listening. Marcus has been researching conservatorship laws. He's been talking to Stephanie about your age, about how people your age start declining, become forgetful. Robert, they're building a case to declare you incompetent, to take control of the property. The property. 40 acres of pristine lakefront land, the house I'd built with my own hands 30 years ago. In this market, with developers circling Lake Michigan like sharks, it was worth nearly $4 million. I confronted him yesterday, Linda said, and I heard the anger in her voice now. He denied everything, laughed it off. But Robert, I saw it in his eyes. Your brother would be heartbroken. I was going to tell you this weekend, after I got back from the community center. I wanted to have a plan first. But if you're hearing this, something happened to me, and I need you to promise me something. I gripped the edge of the trunk. Don't trust Marcus. Don't sign anything. And Robert, don't let them think you're weak. You're the man who designed the Huron River Bridge. You're the smartest person I've ever known. Use that brilliant mind of yours. Protect what we built together. I love you. I'll always love you. The tape clicked off. I sat in that dusty attic for an hour, watching the afternoon light slant through the small window. Linda had made this tape 14 months ago, 3 days before she died. She'd hidden it in the toolbox, knowing I'd eventually need those tools, knowing I'd find it. And suddenly, Marcus's recent behavior clicked into a different pattern. The surprise visit 2 weeks ago, where he'd casually mentioned how isolated the lake house was in winter. The dinner last month where Stephanie had asked, very sweetly, if I'd been feeling foggy lately. The conversation just last week, when Marcus suggested I might want to think about simplifying my life. They'd been laying groundwork. I descended from the attic, my engineering mind already working through the problem like I used to work through bridge designs. Calculate the forces. Identify the weak points. Build accordingly. That evening, Marcus called. "Uncle Robert, just checking in. We haven't seen you in a few days." "I'm fine, Marcus. Just been tired lately. This big house, you know." A pause. "Tired? Are you feeling okay? Should I come over?" "No, no. Just getting older, I suppose." I let my voice trail off a bit, added a vague quality to it. What was I saying? "You were saying you're tired, Uncle Robert." I could hear the sharpness in his attention now. "Listen, Stephanie and I would love to have you over for dinner this weekend. We can talk about some options that might make your life easier." "That sounds nice. What day is it today?" "It's Tuesday, Uncle Robert." "Right, Tuesday. I'll have to check my calendar." I had no calendar. My schedule was mental and precise, had been for 50 years. But I heard Marcus's breath quicken with what sounded like satisfaction. After we hung up, I made myself a coffee and sat down with a legal pad. I was an engineer. I built things that lasted, things that could withstand pressure and stress. Now I'd build a trap. I started documenting everything. Every conversation with Marcus and Stephanie, every suggestion they made. I set up the old webcam on my computer, pointed at the living room, set it to motion activate recording. I called my attorney, Sarah Chen, whom I'd known since she was my grandson's high school debate partner. Sharp as they came. "Sarah, I need you to run some checks for me, quietly. I need to know if anyone's been making inquiries about conservatorship proceedings with my name attached." There was a long pause. "Mr. Harrison, has something happened?" "I'm not sure yet. But I'm a careful man, Sarah. Humor me." 3 days later, Sarah called back. "Mr. Harrison, I found something. Marcus Harrison filed preliminary paperwork last month. Nothing official yet, but he's been consulting with elder law attorneys, building a case for diminished capacity." My hands tightened on the phone. "On what grounds?" "Age. Isolation. He's claiming you've been exhibiting signs of confusion, and that he's concerned for your welfare. He hasn't filed anything with the court yet, but the groundwork is all there. He's being very methodical about it." Methodical, like I'd taught him when he was a boy, when I'd helped him with his math homework and science projects, when I'd paid for half his college because David couldn't afford it. "Thank you, Sarah. I need you to do something for me. I need you to start a file, confidential, and I need you to prepare some documents." Over the next month, I played my part. I invited Marcus and Stephanie over for dinner and forgot I'd invited them, acting confused when they arrived. I called Marcus asking what day it was. I left the garage door open overnight twice. Small things, believable things, and they took the bait like fish to a lure. Stephanie started bringing over casseroles, staying to help organize my kitchen. She'd move things around, then act concerned when I couldn't find them later. Marcus began talking about options more directly. Assisted living facilities, selling the property, simplifying. "Uncle Robert, you know this house is too much for you," Marcus said one evening, sitting in my living room. My webcam was recording from its position on the bookshelf, disguised among old family photos. "What if you fell? What if something happened? We worry about you out here all alone." "I've been managing fine," I said, but I let my hand tremble a bit as I reached for my coffee. "Have you, though?" Stephanie leaned forward. "Marcus told me you called him 3 times last week asking what day it was." "I had. Deliberately. Did I? I don't remember that." They exchanged a look. The same look Linda must have seen. Calculating. Opportunistic. "We think it might be time to talk seriously about your care," Marcus said. "We've been looking into some really nice facilities. Memory care units. You'd have people around, activities, medical staff on site. This is my home. Linda and I built it." "I know, Uncle Robert, but Aunt Linda is gone." Stephanie's voice dripped with false sympathy. "And you're not getting any younger. 67 is." "67 is not old," I said, letting some sharpness into my voice before catching myself. "I mean, I'm just tired." But I'd seen Marcus's eyes narrow at my momentary clarity. He was smart, not quite smart enough, but smart. I'd have to be more careful. That weekend, I drove 2 hours south to Grand Rapids and met with Sarah in person. I brought her everything. The cassette tape, which I'd had professionally digitized and authenticated. The webcam recordings, 14 hours of footage showing Marcus and Stephanie's visits, their questions, their manipulation. Phone records showing the pattern of my deliberately confused calls. Documentation from my doctor showing I was in perfect cognitive health had been tested just 2 months prior for my annual physical. "This is elder abuse," Sarah said flatly, watching one of the videos where Stephanie deliberately moved my medications and then expressed concern that I couldn't find them. "Financial exploitation, conspiracy at minimum. What I want," I said, "is to make sure they can never do this. Not just to me. To anyone." Sarah smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "I have an idea. But you'll need to trust me. And you'll need to keep playing the part for 2 more weeks." 2 weeks later, Marcus came to me with papers. "Uncle Robert, we need to talk. Stephanie and I have been really worried. We think it's time to make some legal arrangements, just to protect you." "What kind of arrangements?" "We'd like you to sign a power of attorney, just temporarily, until we can get you evaluated by some specialists. We've found a wonderful doctor who—" "No." The word came out firm, clear. Marcus blinked. "Uncle Robert, I don't think you understand." "I understand perfectly. You want me to sign over control of my assets so you can sell my property and put me in a facility." I watched his face change, the mask of concern slipping. "I'm not confused, Marcus. I'm not declining. I'm 67 years old, in perfect health, and in complete control of my faculties." "You've been calling me confused for weeks." Stephanie stood up. "You didn't know what day it was. You can't find anything." "You're clearly not capable of." "Of what? Outthinking you?" I pulled out my phone, opened the camera app, showed them the red recording light. "This conversation is being recorded, as were all your previous visits, every manipulation, every lie, every time you moved my things and pretended to be concerned, every phone call where I pretended to be confused. I have it all." Marcus's face went white. You were testing us?" Linda warned me. 14 months ago, 3 days before she died, she recorded a tape telling me what you were planning. She heard you, Marcus. She heard you on the phone talking about getting me into assisted living so you could develop this property. She must have been confused herself. Mistaken. The tape is dated and authenticated. You want to claim my 65-year-old wife, who had perfect cognitive function until the moment a truck killed her, was confused? Really? Stephanie grabbed her purse. "We should go." "You should stay," Sarah Chen said, walking in from the hallway where she'd been waiting. "I'm Sarah Chen, Mr. Harrison's attorney, and I have some papers I'd like you to look at." She spread documents across my coffee table. "This is a cease and desist order. You are to have no contact with Mr. Harrison regarding his finances, property, or healthcare decisions. This is a restraining order preventing you from coming within 500 feet of this property. And this is a complaint I'm filing with the State Bar Association regarding the attorneys you consulted about fraudulent conservatorship proceedings." "You can't do this," Marcus said, but his voice was weak. "I'm his nephew. I'm family." "Family doesn't exploit family," I said. "Family doesn't see a man in his 60s and assume he's incompetent just because they want his property. Your father would be ashamed of you, Marcus. I promised David I'd look after you. I paid for your education. I gave you your first engineering job. And this is how you repay that? You have money you don't need." Marcus's composure cracked. "You're sitting on $4 million of land, living alone, while Stephanie and I are struggling with our mortgage. You don't even have kids of your own. What are you going to do with all this? That's none of your concern. But since you ask, I've established the Linda Harrison Foundation for Community Development. This property will be donated to the foundation upon my death. The house will become a community center. The land will be preserved as public lakefront access. Everything Linda and I built will serve this community forever. You won't see a penny." The silence that followed was profound. Stephanie started crying. Not sad tears, angry ones. "Get out of my house," I said quietly. "Sarah will see you out." After they left, I walked out onto the deck overlooking the lake. The autumn sun was setting, painting the water gold and crimson. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photo of Linda I kept as my wallpaper. Her smile, bright and fierce. "I protected it, honey," I said to the wind. "I protected what we built." A month later, I stood in that same spot with Sarah and the foundation board members. Marcus and Stephanie had left town, unable to face the scandal. The local paper had run a story about elder financial abuse, using our case as a warning. 3 other families had come forward with similar stories about different relatives. There was talk of new legislation. "You know," Sarah said, standing beside me, "when I was 17, debating the ethics of age discrimination, you came to one of our tournaments. You told me something I've never forgotten." "What's that?" "You said, being underestimated is the most powerful weapon an intelligent person can have. You let people think you're less than you are, and they show you exactly who they are." I smiled. Linda said the same thing. She was smarter than all of us. She was smart enough to know you'd figure it out. Smart enough to leave you the tape where you'd find it exactly when you needed it. Sarah put a hand on my shoulder. "She knew you, Mr. Harrison. She knew you'd protect this." That night, I went up to the attic one more time. I played the tape again, listening to Linda's voice. "Use that brilliant mind of yours. Protect what we built together. I love you. I'll always love you." I hadn't cried much since she died, but I cried that night, sitting in that dusty attic, holding the cassette tape like it was made of gold. The next morning, I was up at dawn. I made coffee, scrambled some eggs, and sat on the deck watching the lake wake up. A blue heron landed on the dock, preening its feathers. Linda had loved those birds, called them elegant, regal. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Harrison? This is Jennifer Wu from Channel 7 News. We'd like to do a story about your foundation and the elder abuse case. Would you be willing to talk?" I thought about it. Thought about Linda telling me to use my mind. Thought about those 3 other families who'd come forward. "Yes," I said. "I'll talk, but not about me. About how to protect yourself. About warning signs. About how being older doesn't mean being weak or confused or ready to be managed by people who think they know better." The interview aired 2 weeks later. I sat in my living room, surrounded by photos of Linda, and watched myself on screen saying the words I knew she'd want me to say. I'm 67 years old. I design bridges that will stand for 100 years. I built this house with my own hands. I can still do calculus in my head, and I run 3 miles every morning. Being in your 60s, 70s, 80s doesn't make you incompetent. It makes you experienced. And if someone in your life suddenly starts treating you like you're fragile or confused or incapable, pay attention, ask why, trust your gut, and document everything. The segment ended with information about elder abuse hotlines and legal resources. My phone started ringing before the credits finished rolling. Other seniors. Adult children worried about their parents. Attorneys. Advocates. I spent the next month fielding calls, giving interviews, working with Sarah to develop educational materials. The foundation took shape. We hired an architect to draw up plans for converting the house into a community center while I was still living. "No point waiting until I'm dead," I told the board. "Let's do it while I can see it." On what would have been Linda's 66th birthday, we broke ground on the community wing. The whole town came out. The mayor gave a speech. Someone had made a banner with Linda's picture, her bright smile beaming down at the construction site. I stood with the golden shovel they'd given me, looking at all these faces. Young families, teenagers, elderly couples holding hands. This was what Linda had wanted. Community, connection, legacy. I dug the shovel into the earth. The crowd cheered. That evening, exhausted and happy, I sat on the deck with a beer. The heron was back, standing perfectly still in the shallow water, watching for fish. "You'd love this, honey," I said to the wind, to the lake, to Linda's memory. "The center's going to have art classes, music programs, a library, everything you talked about." The heron took flight, its massive wings beating the air, and I could swear I heard Linda's laugh in the sound. Not sad, not haunting, just there. Like she'd always be there, in every piece of this place we'd built together. 6 months later, the Linda Harrison Community Center opened its doors. I gave the ribbon-cutting honors to Mrs. Patricia Chen, Sarah's grandmother, the oldest member of our town at 94. She'd been fighting off her own family's attempts to control her finances. She cut that ribbon with shaking but determined hands, and the crowd roared. I still live in the house, in the private wing we designed. But every day I hear music from the classrooms, children's laughter from the art studio, the soft murmur of the book club meeting in Linda's library. Marcus sent a letter once, no return address, just a single page. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Dad would be disappointed in me. You were right to stop me. I hope someday you can forgive me. I filed it away with all the other documents. Maybe someday I'll write back. Maybe I won't. Linda taught me that forgiveness is optional, but protecting yourself isn't. On our anniversary, I walked down to the dock with a bottle of Linda's favorite wine. I poured 2 glasses, set one on the railing for her, and sipped mine slowly as the sun set over the lake. We did it, honey, I said. We protected it, and it's going to help people for generations. The heron landed on the dock again, closer than it had ever come before. It looked at me with one bright eye, then returned its gaze to the water, patient, watchful, regal, just like Linda had always said. I raised my glass to the bird, to the sunset, to the memory of my wife and the life we'd built. To being underestimated, I said, and to proving them all wrong. The wind picked up, rustling through the trees, and somewhere in that sound, I heard her voice one more time. That's my brilliant engineer. I smiled. The heron took flight, and I sat there until the stars came out, surrounded by everything we'd protected, everything we'd built, everything that would last long after I was gone. 67 wasn't old. It wasn't even close to finished. It was just the beginning of the next chapter, the one where I made sure Linda's dreams lived on. And every single day, I made sure they knew that too.